Gundam.tk presents Raphael Gundam. Hey, what's up again, everybody? Robert 184 2Rs 2Bs, as always, Gundam.tk, and I'm here to finish up my review of the high-grade Raphael Gundam from the Gundam 00 movie Awakening of the Trailblazer. Don't forget to check out the earlier parts to see the deboxing. I really enjoyed putting this kit together, and it's pretty simple and straightforward. Got a few pleasant surprises along the way. And when all is said and done, of course, you're going to get the legs with the feet attached, the waist section, the chest, the shoulders and arms attached, the head, and then for weapons, we're going to get the GN beam rifle. We're going to get the GN claws, 2 of those, the backpack for the Sarah V2, and the clear stand, so that you can put the claws out in a menacing style. When I was putting this together, I sort of wished that I had built the Gadessa or the Garazo or the Gadess or something like that, just for a point of reference. But anyway, this is quite a bit different from the other 3 lead Gundams, because sometimes they've gotten a little bit repetitive putting them all together over time. Anyway, as far as leg articulation goes, you've got some cool looking triangle shapes up there, and you're going to get 135, let's say, there. The knees don't move. On the feet themselves, you're going to have a big black seal there, which fits in quite nicely, and a seal on the bottom, which I didn't put on all that well. But anyway, on the back with the heel, it's sort of got this 2-step mechanism where you're able to pop this off with not too much difficulty, and you see that there's 2 slots here. So what you can do is you can normally put it down here, but you can also rise it up or put it up here. Of course, it's a little bit tricky to get it under the armor, but when you do that, you're able to put the foot all the way down, which makes for a very Raphael type pose as he sends off the claws. And just a note about this kind of system in general, where you're able to take it off and put it in a new place. You see that in quite a few new kits, like Zabanya's shoulders and a few others do that. And for me, it's great because rather than having some sort of a swing mechanism, which is going to cause too many moving parts, especially when you're trying to worry about ankle stability, I prefer just taking it off and putting it into the right place, and I think it works perfectly on these 1/144th kits. The waist section of the Raphael is dull, dull, dull. Just put a little bit of gray lining there, and on the sides, just got a regular peg that you plug into the white part and then put that into the polycap. And the hips joints are actually mounted onto the waist before you plug them into this pocket here on the legs. The chest, however, was fun to put together compared to the waist section. Good use of color with the white, yellow, and the purple, and for whatever reason, I was so glad that they finally brought out Terria's color and incorporated it into his mobile suit, so that's awesome. A little bit of red down there, put some black lining there. The shoulders are able to move around here very, very well, so hopefully that's going to transfer once you put the arms on. In the back, little details like black vent jets there, and this part here goes up and down, and this part hopefully is going to be enough to be able to keep the massive Sarah V2 plugged in. For the arms, we have solid mobility, starting with just a ball joint up at the top, so that pivots around here, and the shoulder armor rotates up and down there. Here we've got a bend at the elbow, and it's going to go up that far, so you're only going to get a 90, nothing more. No articulation down there in the wrist, and you're able to pop the fist out and get some mobility there, or plug it back in if you want a solid fit. Speaking of the Sarah V2, or the giant backpack that sits on top of his shoulders instead of on the back, first of all, the red of course stands out. In terms of moving parts, not a lot. This waist part flips up. These parts here are just on a joint that you attach on. They don't really move, and on the back, of course, though, you are able to move these around, and they have about this much movement off to the side, so don't expect to be pulling these guns off in a lot of different poses. Now, there is a way that you just slide this part in, and that's where the bend mechanism would be if this was a 1/100th or a master grade kit, and underneath you may be able to see a hidden Sarah V head, which is completely plain, and they don't even bother to give you seals to cover up his eyes, showing that really this is meant to be hidden and not seen. With this part on the claws, you can actually see the same idea that we saw with the ankle, or with the heels, where you're able to pull this up and plug it in, or put it down below, depending on which form of the transformation you have these claws in. As for the GN claws themselves, I was pleasantly surprised that if you notice up at the top, there's these 2 pieces here, and this part pops out. And what you're able to do then is choose whether you want to put in this bendable, movable claw, or this solid, locked into place one. So the difference between the two is pretty simple. You've got the rocket here, I've got it in its lowered position, that's where you're going to mount it on here. And as far as other moving parts, this part pops out, but this part does not move. It's just going to look good when it's in big cannon mode. But over here, on the other hand, you have the moving part, and for moving parts, you're able to move this The fingers move, although not too much, and they do move a little bit here off to the sides. So you're able to pinch those in, and you get a moving thumb no matter which configuration you keep it in, and it bends like that. So you're able to pull off quite a few claw grips and still have a solid looking cannon. So that was a pleasant surprise on Bandai's part for giving us them both. An incredibly plain weapon here in the beam rifle, but then again it seems to suit the Raphael. That's a clear part in there that I chose to paint clear green. I'm telling you, that clear green Tamiya paints that I bought at the beginning of the 00 collections has paid off 100 times with how much I've used them. Last but not least, the real winner of the Raphael Gundam is the head, and I have to say that this is probably one of the most unique head builds that I've seen in any Gundam series ever. It really works for me for some reason. Of course, the big noticeable thing is that you've got this giant white part here that goes over the red goatee, and the red goatee plugs into the back, so this front white part is just one solid piece, but it works out quite well. I could have put some lining in there, but I sort of liked the overall white effect, so I didn't want to muck that up. Sticker there for the eyes. This is a clear green part, and it's got a hole in the middle, so I painted this with my clear green, but when you put that on, the yellow part underneath sort of sticks forward and makes it stand out, which turns out to be a pleasant consequence. Anyway, just some light lining there to go with the overall theme of this Gundam. So for me, the head and the chest, that's worth the price of admission, all on their own. Now it's time though for the big but, because as fun as it was as a build and as cool as the parts are individually, it doesn't matter until it's all put together. So stay tuned for the next part and let's see how this works and what kind of posability and what kind of weight issues are we going to get with the fact that it has a big fat Gundam sitting on its shoulders. Let's find out. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Sorry guys, but Raphael Gundam is just way cooler than Star Platinum.